I never imagined my entire life could be erased in minutes. But the moment I turned the corner onto the old forest road, I knew something was horribly wrong. Smoke drifted above the treetops. The smell of burnt wood filled the air, and my heart dropped into my stomach. I pressed the gas harder, praying it wasn't what I feared. But it was. My historic cabin, my grandfather's pride, the place built by his own hands, was gone, flattened, bulldozed, into a pile of crushed timber and drifting ashes. It looked like a battlefield, not a home. My legs trembled as I stepped out of the car. Memories, holidays, summers, repairs, laughter flashed like broken glass in my mind, all of it destroyed. And then I saw her, Karen, standing near the rubble with her arms crossed, sunglasses on, smirk sharp enough to cut through the smoke. She didn't look surprised. She didn't look confused. She looked satisfied. "What happened to my cabin?" I shouted. My voice shook, half from fury, half from heartbreak. She shrugged. "You should have checked your paperwork. It wasn't yours to keep." But something inside me said she was lying. Karen always had a way of stirring things up. Complaints, confrontations, threats. But this? Bulldozing someone's home? Even for her, this was too extreme. Hours later, after police took statements and workers vanished with their machines, I walked through the debris trying to understand what happened. That's when I noticed something strange, a discarded folder, half buried under splintered boards. I pulled it out, dusting off ash and dirt. Inside were printed emails. Dozens of them. The more I read, the faster my heartbeat became. These weren't random emails. They were conversations between Karen and a development group. My name appeared again and again. So did the words historic cabin, clearing, and the part that made my blood boil. Yes, the cabin sits on his land. We know. Proceed anyway. My hands tightened around the pages. They knew. All of them knew. The land was legally mine. The cabin was mine. They had zero right to touch it. Yet Karen pushed them to do it anyway. Suddenly, everything made sense. Her smirk, her confidence, the timing. She didn't make a mistake. She planned this. And now I had proof. But this was only the start. Those emails were a trail. One I was ready to follow all the way to the truth. I sat alone in my truck that night. The folder of emails open on the passenger seat, illuminated by the dim glow of the dashboard. Rain tapped against the windshield. But my mind was far louder, racing, connecting pieces, replaying every strange moment from the past few months. Karen had been too curious about my property, too nosy about the renovation permits, too excited when she heard developers were scouting the forest area. I didn't see it then, but now, everything fit together. I reread each email slowly, making sure I wasn't misinterpreting anything. But no, there was nothing vague or confusing. The messages were straightforward, careless even. Karen had emailed them photos of my cabin, bragging about how this old structure is in the way, and insisting that removing it will make room for better plans. Better plans? Better for who? Not for the community. Not for the land. Definitely not for me. One email stood out more than the rest. It was time-stamped just 2 days before the bulldozers arrived. Yes, we know the property is legally his. He's stubborn, but he won't fight it if you move quickly. I stared at that line for what felt like forever. They didn't think I'd fight back. They thought I'd simply accept it, that I'd walk away from the last piece of my family's history. They didn't know me at all. By morning, I was done grieving. I was ready to act. The first step was simple. Find out who exactly was behind this. If Karen was bold enough to coordinate everything, she must have left more clues. So I started asking around. I talked to neighbors, local workers, even the mailman. Most people claimed they knew nothing, but a few drops of truth started appearing. Someone had seen Karen meeting strangers in SUVs near the forest entrance. Another person had heard her talking about a big opportunity involving my land. The final breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a young worker, who had been on the demolition crew. He approached me nervously, eyes darting around as if someone might be watching. "I'm not supposed to say anything," he whispered. "But she told us the land was abandoned. She rushed everything. Paid extra to get it done fast. Paid extra. Rushed the demolition. Lied about it being abandoned." The puzzle was no longer a puzzle. It was a full-blown scheme. And now, with the workers' testimony and the incriminating emails, I had everything I needed to take the next step, confronting Karen directly, face to face. No more guessing. No more silence. It was time for her to answer for everything she tried to destroy. The next morning, I parked my car in front of Karen's house. Her mansion loomed larger than ever, pristine and untouched, almost mocking the chaos she had caused in my life. I clutched the folder of emails tightly in my hand, feeling the weight of every secret line, every calculated message. Today I wasn't coming to argue, I was coming for answers. And if necessary, accountability. I rang the doorbell. The sound echoed through the grand hallways before Karen herself appeared. Hair perfectly styled, lips curved in that same infuriating smirk. She looked at me with mock surprise. Well, didn't expect to see you so soon, she said, tilting her head. Everything all right with your cabin? I didn't answer. Instead, I held up the folder. Read these, I said, voice steady but sharp. These emails prove you knew the land was mine. You organized the demolition anyway. Her smirk faltered ever so slightly. Emails? What emails? I stepped closer, pulling out one of the sheets. This one, for starters. You literally instructed them to destroy my home, knowing full well it belonged to me. Karen's eyes flicked over the paper, and for the first time, I saw hesitation. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried to muster some excuse. I thought... You thought? I interrupted. You thought you could just take what isn't yours? My family's history, my home? You call that thinking? The tension in the room was electric. Even her assistants in the background were frozen, unsure whether to intervene or remain silent. I continued, reading aloud snippets of her conversations with the crew, each line dripping with arrogance and premeditation. Finally, she could no longer maintain her composure. Her voice rose, almost panicked. You don't understand! I understand perfectly, I said, cutting her off. You wanted my land. You wanted to see me powerless. But thanks to these emails and the testimony of those who were coerced into your plan, I have proof, and it's all coming out. Karen's face turned pale. I could see it, the realization that her carefully crafted scheme had just been exposed. The smirk was gone, replaced with a thin line of fear and frustration. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. This isn't over. You'll answer for everything you did, and I will make sure the truth is known. She swallowed hard, no words left to defend herself. I turned, folder in hand, and walked out of her mansion, every step feeling lighter than the last. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time since seeing my cabin destroyed, I felt in control. The emails had given me the upper hand, and now it was only a matter of time before justice followed. Weeks passed like a storm, each day bringing new developments. I filed complaints, shared the emails with authorities, and gathered statements from the workers and neighbors who had witnessed Karen's orchestrated demolition. The process was slow, exhausting, and at times discouraging. But every setback only strengthened my resolve. I refused to let months of planning by someone so reckless erase generations of history. Finally, the day came when I received the call I had been waiting for. The court had reviewed the evidence, the emails, the testimonies, the timeline, and the ruling was clear. The cabin and land were legally mine. The demolition had been unlawful. Karen and anyone involved faced fines, penalties, and public accountability. I drove back to the site of the cabin with a sense of cautious anticipation. The debris had been cleared, and a small crew was already at work, beginning the restoration process. I stepped onto the land, feeling the familiar crunch of gravel beneath my boots, and for the first time in weeks, a weight lifted from my chest. Neighbors gathered, some offering hugs, others simply watching with relief. The forest, which had seemed tainted by destruction, now felt alive again, as if it sensed the return of rightful ownership. I walked slowly across the property, imagining each timber being restored, each window replaced, each corner of my cabin coming back to life. That evening, I sat on the porch of the partially rebuilt cabin, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The smell of fresh-cut wood mingled with the forest air. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I smiled without reservation. Justice had not been instant, but it had arrived, undeniable and complete. I thought about Karen. The emails she had sent, so confident, so certain, were now public knowledge, a testament to her recklessness. People had seen the truth, and her reputation was tarnished beyond repair. Every sneer, every attempt to manipulate had failed. The cabin was more than just wood and nails. It was a symbol of persistence, of standing up when others tried to take everything from you. And now, it was mine again, stronger in both history and memory. I looked around one last time, inhaling deeply, letting the calm wash over me. I knew life would continue, challenges would come, but one thing was certain. I had fought back and I had won. The emails had exposed the scheme, and the cabin had survived. A monument to justice, resilience, and the refusal to give up. I stood, folded the folder of emails neatly, and placed it on the porch. The fight was over. The cabin, and my family's legacy, was safe. Can you believe what Karen tried to do to my historic cabin? This isn't just a story. It's proof that people sometimes go too far. If you want to see more wild HOA dramas, hit subscribe, smash that like, and comment below. What would you do if someone tried this to your home?